there was no one who was as requested by Democratic candidates to come join them on the stage as Bill Clinton. Do you know one single candidate for the House or Senate who has asked Bill Clinton to come endorse their candidacy?
It looks like you are endorsing, in the age of Me Too, a sexual harasser or worse. But we do have some people who think that we're wrong about this.
Oh, good. Let's hear it.
Here's Peggy in Needham. She says, stop blaming Hillary for Bill's bad behavior. If your husband cheated on you, you'd felt the same way. She talks about women in her family and made sure, wow, these are tough, that the women that had affairs with their husbands lost their jobs, called them mothers and husbands of the women, blah, blah, blah. She said, we do believe Ford, but we are sorry. We listened to Broderick and we don't believe her. Bill is a horrible dog, but it's not Hillary's fault.
Whoa. Don't leave that yet.
Well, I'm going to
I'm sorry.
answer. Peggy, what I would say is that Hillary went after these women in a very active way and demeaned them and had tried to undermine them and discredit them, which I think was pretty bad. I get the idea of wanting to defend your husband, but the problem is he's the president of the United States and you're trying to paint a false picture. And the other thing is, I find it hard to believe how you could find Ford credible and not find Broderick credible when she told so many people at the time it happened.
Well, but also the most important part, what's that person's name?
Peggy.
Peggy, you used the word cheating a few times. I'm not talking about Jennifer Flowers. My view is Jennifer Flowers is that was a long-term relationship between Bill and Hillary Clinton. That's not my business. What is our business is not cheating, but sexual assault and alleged rape is our business. That's Broderick. That's Lewinsky. That's Paula Jones. So, cheating, I agree with you. Defend them if you want. Tell us it's none of our business. But this is not, at least in my mind, this is not about cheating. It's about
Although I will say what I always say when you bring this up, that to say it's kind of somebody's business when they're cheating. If a woman were cheating, she wouldn't last for 2 seconds.
I agree with that.
There's such a double standard here. So we can't be saying, oh, it's okay if, a JFK had 7 million girlfriends or however many he had, and because Jackie would not have had that same grace.
I agree. That's a fair point. I'm just saying that there are two. Then let me put it this way: there are two different things. Cheating and sexual assault are two different
things.
Kettles of proverbial fish.
That is correct.
Where do you want to go next?
Let's go to Chris in New Hampshire.
Hi, Chris.
Good morning.
Hi there.
I've listened to you guys quite a bit on the old stations, and I find you guys great. I love listening to
Thanks.
you.
Oh, thank you.
You bring a whole new perspective on things.
We do?
For me.
Well, thank you. Glad to hear it. What's up?
Actually, I worked for Andrea. And
Andrea Cabral?
Yes.
We love Andrea Cabral. Former Sheriff of Suffolk County, former Secretary of Public Safety. Go ahead.
Yeah, I worked at the Sheriff's Department.
Oh, great.
As far as the Clintons go, how can we miss you if you won't go away? I don't know who coined the phrase, but just go away.
Chris, I'm really glad you mentioned your former employer because in the spirit of fairness, which we try to embrace from time to time, my guess is somebody who would strongly disagree with us. I don't want to speak for her. If there was a high-profile person whom I respect who might think we're going overboard, it might be Andrea Cabral.
She was a strong supporter of Hillary.
I don't know if she still believes that they should be on the stage.
And, obviously against Trump.
But, Chris, thanks for the call, and thanks for listening, and thanks for being nice to us. 877-301-8097. And, by the way, I've only seen the Globe story about them coming, and I operate on the assumption that Globe reporters are fair and play it down the middle. How many Democrats were quoted in the Globe story say, I can't wait until the Clintons come to town?
I do not recall any.
None. And how many Democrats, including prominent ones, members of the United States Senate and others, were making jokes like, what is this, Peter, Paul, and Mary? I mean, that was Sherrod Brown from Ohio, who I didn't know had a sense of humor. But there's not a wild amount of enthusiasm.
Well, we'll see.
What did Joe Kennedy say to us yesterday when we asked him, Congressman Kennedy, who's very close to the Clintons? I wouldn't say he was critical, but I think it's fair to say he was not wildly enthusiastic about their return. Is that a fair description?
He was wildly enthusiastic about going down to Texas to campaign for Beto O'Rourke.
Which he's doing tomorrow, I think, this weekend.
Yeah. Anyway, we are talking about the return of the Clintons and their multi-state speaking tour. The conversation continues on 89.7 WGBH, Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library WGBH studio.
You might agree.
You might disagree.
You might even agree to disagree. But whatever you think,
At least you're thinking.
that's why Boston Public Radio is here every weekday.
And it only happens with your support.
Call 888-897-9424.
Or give online at wgbhnews.org.
Okay, so here's the deal. This is probably the favorite hour of Pledge for both of us for different reasons. I love the next 35 minutes because it's a $10,000 match, meaning any dollar you contribute up to $10,000 will be matched dollar for dollar. 100 becomes 200, 1,000 becomes 2,000. Marjorie's favorite 36 minutes because the thing you get, that's available till 2, but only with a match till 12, is the return of the Smug Mug, which has, again, I agree to this, which I cannot understand. It is a beautiful mug. It really is quite lovely, except for the photographs. Marjorie looks like, literally, like you could star in a Hollywood movie. No, you do.
Very nice of you to say.
And I look, how would I put this? Old, angry, condescending, arrogant, and probably indictable. I think all those adjectives. Is that fair?
You know, a little scenario. Last night we had this wonderful food and wine festival, WGBH Wine.
Yeah,
and there was a special VIP room. You had to have a little bracelet.
Yeah.
And they didn't recognize Jim.
One of the volunteers
at the door of the VIP
said,
room.
"Do you have it?" She is no longer a volunteer. No, that's a joke.
That's a
so
joke.
for $12.50 a month as a sustainer, or $150 at one pop, you get the mug. And by the way, I think it's
a
from the
mug.
last few years, not only a beautiful mug, great colors, great photographs. Mm-hmm. It is the most popular pledge item. It is gone for this whole pledge drive at 2 o'clock. And if you want to buy it and have your contribution matched, you got to do it by noon at 888-897-9424. Or WGBH.org.
I think it's fair to say the Smug Mug may be the most popular item we've ever had here, I should say, during our time at WGBH for obvious reasons. Anyway, we want to give a sincere thanks to Allison in Saunderstown, Rhode Island, Holly in Hyde Park, Debbie in Holden. They all had their gifts matched, which is fantastic. As Jim just said, if you give before noontime and we're running out of time, it's a half hour or so left. What's so funny?
I'm laughing. This guy just walked out of the library, asked me while you're speaking, he says, he motions me, hold up the mug.
Yeah.
So I hold up the mug with your side, and he smiles. And he says like this, he revolves, he says, like, turn around, and I have my picture, and he goes, thumbs down.
Well,
it's very nice.
No, I think it's a very good. It captures Jim. Let's put it that way. It captures him. Anyway, all these people have their gifts matched, which you can have for the next half hour. $100 becomes $200, 1,000 becomes 2,000, up to $10,000. So it's a great time to give. And the other thing is, of course, the Smug Mug, which you can get for $12.50 a month.
Return of the Smug Mug.
Return of the Smug Mug, only until 2 o'clock this afternoon. So thank you for whatever you can do to support us. It does mean a lot to us, seriously, that people take the time out of their busy day to donate to WGBH. You can do it, too, at 888-897-9424 or WGBH.org.
This is like a collector's item. Do you know? I mean, this
is a collector's
huge,
item.
By the way.
I only have one of them.
Marjorie's
I need another.
I have a whole trunk load, but I'm not. Got rid of as many as I can.
How is it that you get all the gifts?
897
and I have to beg, borrow, and steal to get one.
9424 or WGBH.org. Jason just typed, our coworker, embalmed is another adjective you can use for your picture. Thank you, Jason. Should get your resume ready, Jason. We'll talk in the morning. You're listening to Boston Public Radio live from the Boston Public Library. By the way, we're going to have musical performance in about 15 minutes, and she is really, really good. New music festival in town. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about the return of Bill and Hillary Clinton by way of their new speaking tour. It's coming to Boston in April. Of course, I guess you could say they never really went away. Since Hillary Clinton lost the 2016 election, she's had a book tour. She appeared in cameo roles. Oh, right, Murphy Brown, Madam Secretary. Bill has had a book tour of his own, and now that they've run out of books to sell, I guess, they're selling themselves. We're taking your calls asking, are you buying? 877-301-8970. If you are, tell us why, and if you're not, tell us why you think this is not your cup of tea.
I want to point out that we're getting emails, including one of our favorite emailers, Art from West Bridgewater, asking if the Smug Mug is the same. Yes, indeed, it is.
It's the same as the second one.
It's the same Smug Mug as the one that Jim looks extraordinarily smug on.
Smug on. Otherwise known as the Smug Mug for that reason.
That is correct. Okay, let's go to Michaela from Cambridge. Hi, Michaela.
Hi, Michaela. How are you?
Hi, good morning.
How do you?
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
So I'm just really distressed by this. I think you're caller party of one or whatever he said was pretty accurate. I think she's trying to make a comeback. And it's very distressing. As like a female Democrat, it would be amazing to have a woman in the White House, but she failed on such a massive level, and she really let down the country. And it feels almost like she's sabotaging her own party. It's really distressing. Think she could potentially run and take the steam out of other, young bloods with good ideas and folks who should have a chance to participate.
Can I tell you, Michaela, that we use the word sabotage? If it's going on, I would give her the benefit of the doubt and say it is surely not intentional. But I think the consequence of them sucking up media attention from, 2 weeks after the midterms until April
elections.
is going to be.
That's right, until April.
It
I'm
is
sorry.
sort of an act of sabotage, even if it is absolutely intended. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt in the best possible way, and I don't know if it is or not. Michaela, thank you very much for the call. I'm dying to see how fast this thing sells out. And I also would love, I'm sure there are listeners who have either bought tickets or are about to. Give us a call. We're not going to, eat you alive. Tell us why you're going. Tell us why you think this is a good idea. And we'd love to talk to you. In fact, we'll take you out of order because I don't want every single call to be one who thinks this is a horrible idea. 877-301-8970.
Yeah, we're not getting much on the other side. Holly from Watertown, thank you for calling.
Hello, Holly. Holly, we'll put you on hold. We'll go to Barbara on Cape Cod. We'll get back to you, Holly, in a second. Barbara on Cape Cod, you're on Boston Public Radio. Hi.
Hi, Jim and Marjorie. How are you?
We're great, thank you.
Well, I don't know why anybody would pay a penny, let alone $151, to go listen to a attempted rapist, or even a rapist for that matter. I can't imagine. Pardon me?
All right, no, pardon you nothing. We're letting you speak. Go ahead.
I thought I heard Marjorie say something.
No.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine why anybody would want to go and pay money to hear them speak. And the other thing that I'm curious about is who asked them? Who are these people that asked them to come and speak?
Yeah,
well,
they're saying
that's
backed
the
by
old
popular
line.
demand, yeah.
Anybody running for office, for example, says, well, I'm not that interested, but a lot of people have asked me to do it. Barbara, thank you for the call. By the way, we should say...
We have another side here.
Oh, I'm sorry, good.
Lynn says, I
Yeah.
don't find your harping on the Clintons to be useful. Plenty of topics much more newsworthy. Russian investigation. Khashoggi
Which we're going to talk about at noon.
in Turkey, danger to journalist, Trump and his line. We are going to talk about that at noon, so stay tuned, Lynn, if you don't like this. But she says she doesn't understand our need to go back and bash the Clintons. He was a good president. Why does Marjorie have this need to constantly go back and obsess about this? What do both of you get out of it? A sense of superiority, perhaps, or moral outrage? It's very annoying when you use this as a means of entertainment. So there you go.
By the way, if you want to call in the next 3 minutes, we'd love to talk to you live on the phone. I happen to be a big believer in small d democracy, and I think for months, what's the woman's name who just wrote? Lynn. I worry, Lynn, and I'm pretty convinced that this is going to be a big-time distraction from the race for the presidency in 2020, because there's going to be speculation like the guy who called from the Cape a while ago, or Georgetown, pardon me, saying, I think she's running again. This is just a trial run for a real run. And you know what's troubling, by the way? That it took Me Too for a decent swath of Americans to decide we've had enough of Bill Clinton. I mean, prior to that, who gave the best defense of Barack Obama?
Clinton.
At the second convention for the soon-to-be reelected Barack Obama. Who was the most in-demand, unelected official in the United States?
Bill Clinton.
For this is only after Harvey Weinstein that a decent number of people, obviously not Lynn, but and that's fine. We respect your opinion, Lynn.
Well, I think
a decent number of people changed their mind.
You know, one of the many answers why women don't come forward and haven't come forward for decades is because these things were just written off.
I agree.
I mean,
with you.
people. Who was stunned that Anita Hill did not prevent Clarence Thomas from getting on the Supreme Court? I certainly wasn't, because at that time it was kind of like, hey, tough it up, sweetheart. Too bad. I mean, we've only recently decided.
Even the Democrats. Joe Biden, as you said, was chair of the committee.
That you don't have to be pawed and groped at in the workplace, and this is kind of a new day. And Clinton, I think, because of the Me Too movement, is no longer accepted, I guess, in the
Holly,
way that he was.
You're back. We have 30 seconds for you. I'm glad your connection's better. Hi.
Hi, thanks.
Hi. Sure.
So, couple things. One, I think Hillary feels and Bill feel like he owes her big time for all she's gone through before, and I think that they're both super tone deaf at this point. I liked both of them for a long time. But two major points. One is that besides the Me Too movement tone deafness, how about the Black Lives Matter tone deafness? And the fact that because of legislation that Bill proposed and got through, we have 4 times as many people of color incarcerated now because of it, and a lot of them were because they didn't have bail money. So I feel like I didn't even really get that when it was going down.
Yeah.
And I think it's really serious. So I feel like they're a distraction. They're done. And also the other difference right now is we've got Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Joe Biden, Bloomberg. We've got lots of options.
Well, Joe Biden was not so hot on those issues either when he chaired the Anita Hill hearings.
I think Me Too.
But
is
Holly,
gonna,
thanks. And by the way, Hillary Clinton got a huge amount of trouble with a certain part of the electorate during the campaign because of her super predator line about that very bill that Holly was talking about. Holly, thank you very much for the call.
Okay, coming up, we're going to change gears and listen to some great music with a preview of the Local Behavior Music Festival. That is next on 89.7 WGBH, Boston Public Radio.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on WGBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at WGBHnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Okay, this is the absolute best time to give if you're so inclined, because for the next, well, actually 25 minutes or something, we have a match, which means if you give $100, it's worth $200. We'll make up the difference. 500, double it is basically what I'm saying.
And then it's gone at noon.
And
the
then
match
it's
is
gone at noon. So it double your money, and it would really make a difference here. And the other great reason to give today is because the last of the famous smug mugs, they're in demand all across New England. Everyone wants to see Jim in this ridiculous smug pose of his, looking like a "do you know who I am" sort of look, looking down at us all.
It's really bad.
It's perfect. It captures
really
him.
bad.
You want to see what Jim looks like when he looks at me all day long. There it is, right there. And the number is 888-897-9424, WGBH.org. I want to thank people who gave, and I really do appreciate it. Bessie in Cambridge, Robin and Dudley, John in Watertown, Denise and Marlborough. I always say if we didn't have these brief pledge breaks during the year, we would have commercials every day, all day. So we really appreciate your giving us your support so we don't have to have those commercials.
By the way, if you want to have the return of the smug mug in your cabinet and drinking coffee or whatever out of it, it's $12.50 a month as a sustainer, $150 in one pop. It is sadly wildly popular. It says live, local, highly caffeinated. Again, an incredibly beautiful photograph of Marjorie, an incredibly horrible picture of me that must have been photoshopped because it could not be that bad. It's black. It's really nice. It's got great heft. I love coffee mugs that have nice heft. So that's the deal. Sustaining membership is meaning the $12.50 a month, or whatever you can afford a month, by the way, is hopefully really good for you, easier in your pocketbook than one lump sum, and obviously really good for the people who do the budgets here because they know what to expect. So as Marjorie has said, 21 minutes from now, the dollar for dollar match disappears.
Right.
Until then, it's a twofer. Not only is every dollar you pledge doubled, but until that time, you get the smug mug if you do $12.50 a month, which would be doubled as well.
888-897-9424 is the number. WGBH.org is where you can give online.
It's fast, too.
It's very fast, and it's very safe and secure and all that kind of stuff.
Thank you for that. That's
and
very
we only have a
important.
few more minutes for the double match, and we only have a couple more hours for the smug mug. And also, as I say before, we get points on how much money we bring in.
We don't get
So it
points.
really means a lot if you
don't
can
get any
support
points.
us before 2 o'clock. So
You have
that
a fragile psyche,
I
and
do.
you feel better if it turns
well,
out people
yeah,
give during our
I
show.
mean, if you're here for 3 hours begging for money and no one contributes, you feel a
We
little
don't
bit
call it
unloved. You know what I mean?
begging,
Well, that's
Margaret.
what we are doing, actually.
What's the
Jim.
phone number?
888-897-9424, WGBH.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library, and we're getting another break, which we love. Joining us to preview the upcoming Local Behavior Music Festival. I'll tell you what that means. Our singer-songwriter Haley Sabella. Haley, it's great to meet you. You are fabulous, by the way. I was embarrassed to
Yeah, we've
admit.
been listening all
I just
morning.
started listening last night. You were great. And Christina Latino, who's the founder and CEO of Cornerscape, she'll explain that to us, which is presenting the local Behavior Music Festival. You can catch it Sunday, October 28th. That's right. Is it not Sunday, 28th? 3 to 8 at the Great City Winery. Haley and Christina, welcome. Good to see you both.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, we're thrilled. We're thrilled to have you here. We can't wait to listen to you sing. But before we do, tell us what this is. What is this festival? What's it about?
So Local Behavior Music Festival is a new multi-genre music festival coming to City Winery on October 28th. And the goal is really to bring together a collection of great women artists and gender non-conforming artists in town and really celebrate the music made by these people.
Is this your? Is it out of your head? This is used to be Club Passim when you were young and irresponsible. Is that true?
Exactly.
One of the great clubs in the history of the world.
Absolutely.
But this is your concept, this thing.
Yeah, and part of it actually came out of that time at Club Passim. I was a sound engineer there, and there aren't that many women sound engineers in town, but at Club Passim there actually are quite a few. And it was a really unique experience not being the only woman in that space. So it really inspired me to start thinking about how we could get other women artists who may think of themselves as having to be the only one on a bill and get them all on a lineup where the whole lineup is all women and non-binary artists.
Well, I must say I was shocked to learn of sexism in the music industry. Most of these festivals are male-dominated. I suppose I should have thought of that before. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Haley Sabella, before you sing. I mean, I know you have a Central American connection, but you also have a Cape Cod connection.
Yeah, and the song I'm going to sing today is about Cape Cod.
Oh!
Yeah, I grew up in Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Terrific.
And I consider Cambridge, like Club Passim is it's like kind of a home away from home in a lot of ways. And being able to participate in this music festival is such an honor. I believe in the mission. And
So can we discuss something much more important than the music festival for a second, and Cape Cod, which we want to hear, which I listened to this morning? You hate winter as much as I do. Is that? Let me tell. I was so thrilled to hear. Tell us about that song, if you would, for a second. What motivated that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, are you speaking the song Turn Around?
Oh, yes, I am.
So the title is asking the seasons to turn around, especially from spring to winter, or winter to spring. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I have a love-hate relationship, as any New Englander does. I swear we're masochists in some sense, I think.
I have something like that. I have a hate-hate relationship. That's what I have. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I do love the seasons. I've done farming for the summer times. So the winter, although I'm not a fan of the cold, I am a fan of the quiet, because it's a nice contrast to the chaos of summer.
Do you want to sing for us?
I would love to.
We'd love that. It's Cape Cod, right? You said? Great.
Yes.
Sandbar spine and a rosehip bush and cigarettes a pack a day. I turned around at 17, learned to drive, I went the other way. I said anywhere but east from here is where I wanna be. With a backpack full of principles and how things ought to be, figured out and folded neat like my mother's laundered sheets. Self-righteous as a pastor's kid before he learned what his father did. I said anywhere but east from here is where I'm gonna be. Kindness used to come so easy. Had I learned to be so mean? Not to your face, but in my head I tossed you out like some book I read, with which I disagreed. I tried too hard to hide the ugly that's in you and in me. Lose my mind in that Cape Cod kind of way. Festivus when the summer folk go with their pals since the 3rd grade. There's 24 of you at 22, and then 34, and then 58. Still hanging round downtown, slurping oysters in October. How'd I learn to be so mean? Thinking anywhere but east from here is where I wanna be. It's where I wanna be. It's where I ought to be.
Oh, man. And that's on Forgive the Birds, which is your new CD, right? Which is terrific.
Oh my
Which is
God,
really
those are great
terrific.
lyrics, going mad in a Cape Cod kind of way. I think a lot of us can relate to that. And slurping oysters in October, huh?
Yeah,
know,
it's
can you-
actually Oyster Fest this weekend.
Oh,
It is?
That's what I was talking about.
Oh, City Winery. You know, it's a fairly new venue, is it not?
Yeah, it's just about a year, actually.
Can you tell, I mean, I have not been there. Everybody's raved about this thing. Tell us a little bit about it. And that's where this
Oh
thing
my
is
goodness.
on the 28th. Yeah.
Yes, they have been such wonderful partners so far in this whole process and really jumped on board with the concepts. I think, so they are a winery, but they also have 2 rooms for live music.
Mm-hmm.
So they are a fully operational venue as well. And they have concerts of different styles and genres all the time. And yeah, you can see music there almost any day of the week, and it's really wonderful. But they've been huge supporters of trying to get a lot of these locally based artists on the stage for the festival this year. So we're super appreciative of them.
By the way, that's the voice of Christina Latino, who's the founder and CEO of Cornerscape, which is behind this local behavior music festival. The woman who sang, who hopefully will sing again in a minute, is Haley Sabella.
Well, before you sing again, I know your connection to Cape Cod, but you talked about how you lived in Central America for a while because your mom and dad were missionaries. So what does that mean, that they go down and set up a small church and preach, and how do you make any money, and how do you survive, and all that?
I mean, that's a long conversation. They got married in Guatemala. That's where they were missionaries. They were part of a church plant there. They were teachers as part of the church organization. And then they ended up moving back to the States. And my parents are still teachers, so my dad was having trouble finding work. And so we ended up moving back to Nicaragua, working at an American school. They're both music teachers, and they both taught at this American school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a total cultural uplift for you in the middle of your childhood.
Oh, yeah, and then I came back just in time for middle school.
Oh, God.
First, I was homeschooled. First, I was from the jungle, then I was homeschooled, and then I got thrown into the fire of middle school.
You know, I don't want to get into that. By the way, I didn't know it until a minute ago. You can watch this discussion live on our Facebook page. Where are you in the homeschool thing? I'm not going to get into this deeply because we have strong
And why
feelings.
don't you preface it by saying
no, I'm not
how
going to
you
say
think
anything.
everybody's crazy?
No, I
He's
do
home-
not think everybody's crazy.
Essentially, he does.
What do you think about the homeschooling deal?
I mean, I appreciate the time that I personally was homeschooled. My mom is a teacher, and she's one of the best
Oh, well, that's a
teachers
good
you'll ever
point,
meet.
actually. Okay.
And so we had a blast. We did tons of hands-on learning. We took lots of walks around Cape Cod. She knows everything about the plants, would teach us about, So I enjoyed it personally. I see why it's problematic for homes that aren't safe or quite as equipped to educate children. But I appreciate the time I was homeschooled.
Can you sing another song for us?
I would love that.
What is it?
This song is called Put You at Ease.
Great. Which also is on the new CD, I should
It
say.
is,
Yes, it is.
yes.
It's an amazing CD. It's
It is.
one of my favorites all year.
I love it too.
Just wait for my amp to warm up, and here we go. This is apt because it starts off with a line about my mother.
Haley's adjusting there. She's adjusting.
Learned shyness from my mother, eccentricity from dad. They weathered many winters, looking to find the promised land. Me inflexible as cotton, as polite as I am vague. When it comes to conversations, I always know just what to say. To put you at ease. explanations for the small words felt like dying petals as we tried harder to grow tall. Now I'm caught in Sinai's fire that can't be solved by speed. In the still of unknown shadows, I'm unfit to take the lead, but I can put you at ease. Let me put you at ease. There is history you inherit by hearing. I learned grace by watching birds fly, sat beside a wingless dove. She was poetry and stillness, improvisation it is love. But I'm afraid of what is dear to me. That's why I'm pushing you away. Can't help but keep to what's familiar. I hope to learn to love someday. Till then I'll put you at ease. Let me put you at ease. There is history you inherit by leaving. There is history you inherit by leaving. There is history you inherit by leaving.
Haley Sabellas from Forgive the Birds. You wrote everything on the CD, did
Yes,
you
I
not?
did, yeah.
It's beautiful. Tell us again, who else is doing this thing on October 28th?
Oh, my goodness.
Who else is preferred? Just give us a few more names
It's
there.
a good long list. Katie Curtis is headlining, who is just fabulous. We have Dutch Rebel playing, Aubrey Haddard, who I think you've had on the
Yeah,
show,
we have.
right?
We have, yes.
Yes, she's wonderful. Marcella Cruz, Billie Dean Thomas, Olivia Gatwood, the Wolf Sisters, Liv Green, Avanti Negral. It's really a very broad list in terms of musical styles. I should mention Haley will be there with her whole band. A lot of the artists are playing full band sets as well, which is going to make it really, really fun.
So who else is in your band?
So the guy who produced my album, Daniel Radin,
Yeah.
he's formerly in a band called The Novel Ideas, a band called Future Teens. He's going to be playing with me, and then I have a drummer named Carl Groman,
Great.
and a few other people.
It's very exciting.
Okay, I'm going to give everyone the lowdown here about what to do. If you want to learn more about this whole event, go to cornerscape.com. Haley Sabella is a singer-songwriter. You can catch her and these other artists, as we said. Local Behavior Music Festival Sunday, October 28th at the City Winery, starting at 3 and going to about 8, right?
Yeah, like 3 to 9. And,
3 to 9.
You can get tickets
6
on the City
hours.
Winery. Oh, yeah. On
Wow.
both stages, too, so
Okay.
it's going to be really fun.
So you can have the wine and watch the music,
I
and it
understand
could be
the
a pretty good
concept. That's
time.
right, Margaret.
Christina Latino is founder and CEO of Cornerscape, which is presenting all this. Haley Sabella and Christina, thank you very much.
Great to see you
Thank
both.
you
Thanks.
so
Good
much.
luck.
Thank you very
it's great.
much.
And good luck. And buy the CD. Forgive the Birds. It's really great. It's really great.
Thank
Up
you so
next, she is back. Emily Rooney here for her
Finally.
famous list of preoccupations and proclamations and fixations, et cetera, et cetera. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, Boston Public Radio, live from the WGBH studio at the Boston Public Library.
And you are listening to Boston Public Radio on WGBH during our fall membership drive. I'm Sonia Lee along with Mark Cohen. And guess what? We are in the final 6 minutes of this hour. We're asking you to make a contribution to support the Boston Public Radio and WGBH news that you listen to and rely on. 888-897-9424, WGBH.org.
And of course, we have a dollar for dollar match in effect, but only for the next 5+ minutes. Now is a great time, one of your last chances to make your contribution go twice as far, because for every dollar you give, the members matching fund here at WGBH will donate an additional dollar. It's their way of encouraging you to support NPR news and entertainment programs right here on WGBH. So the math is easy. You give a gift of $100, that pays for $200 of your listening. $250 becomes $500, and so on and so on and so on. Double the buying power of your contribution, but only for the next 5 minutes. Get that call started now, 888-897-9424. You can also make that contribution online. It will be matched dollar for dollar. You could find us at the donate button when you join us at WGBH.org.
And that means your last opportunity to have your contribution matched and pick up the Boston Public Radio Smug Mug. We're offering it today. The deadline to get it is 2, and then it goes away. But right now, for the next 5 minutes, you can give and have that contribution doubled and get the Boston Public Radio Smug Mug. It's $12.50 a month on the Sustainer plan. That means an extra $150 for us right now. It features Jim and Marjorie right on the mug, a great picture, and WGBH and the Boston Public Radio logo. It says live, local, highly caffeinated. Again, it's going to be a collector's item. It goes away at 2 o'clock, but you can get it now and have that contribution doubled. 888-897-9424, WGBH.org.
And we realize that fundraising campaigns like this are not really the reason you tune in to WGBH, but take just a minute right now and think about the significance of these campaigns. Membership drives like this one gives us the financial independence to bring you the kind of serious, in-depth news that you expect right here on WGBH. In fact, it's these campaigns that set us apart from the rest of the media. We're so proud to ask you to support such a great institution. We hope you have the same kind of pride in your listening and will do your part. Step up, make that contribution now, have it go twice as far. 888-897-9424 or online, WGBH.org.
And this is the last dollar for dollar match of the day on this Friday. And so if you want to support Boston Public Radio and have that contribution doubled, this is the time to do it. We've got some great folks, WGBH members who have offered up these matching dollars to encourage you to support Boston Public Radio. We're down to the final 3 minutes. 3 minutes left to have that contribution doubled. You can give $100. You can give $500. It will be matched. And you can give online at WGBH.org or 888-897-9424.
You know, it's so great to see many listeners are signing up to WGBH on our monthly Sustainer plan. You make a reoccurring monthly contribution from your checking account or credit card. It just takes a couple of minutes to set up, and then that monthly contribution will become news and programs that you'll listen to in the months and years to come. But it just takes a first step from you. Go to the phone right now with your support, 888-897-9424 or online, WGBH.org.
And when you listen to WGBH, you stand with the facts, you stand for clarity, and you stand for reason. And those are all really great reasons to support WGBH right now and Boston Public Radio. I'm asking you to please take 2 minutes, become a sustaining member of this radio station that you rely on. And you can give easily at 888-897-9424, WGBH.org.
And just a reminder, we have the Boston Public Radio Smug Mug as a thank you gift today at just $12.50 a month on our Sustainer plan, or a one-time contribution of $120. You've been hearing us talk about it. It's a mug that features handsome pictures of the dynamic duo Jim and Marjorie. It's got the WGBH and Boston Public Radio logos along with the statement, live, local, and highly caffeinated. It's really your last chance to pick up on this mug and have that contribution go twice as far with our dollar for dollar match. $12.50 on our Sustainer plan, or $150 all at once. 888-897-9424 or WGBH.org.
That's right. That dollar for dollar match, it's ending now in just a couple of minutes, 2 minutes. It's the last dollar for dollar match on this Friday. It's the last dollar for dollar match of Boston Public Radio today. Your last chance to pick up the mug and have that contribution doubled. We hope you'll take advantage of that at 888-897-9424, WGBH.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and Arts Emerson, presenting Shakespeare's Measure for Measure. With themes ripped from the headlines, it is both shocking and illuminating. October 24th through the 28th at the Emerson Cutler Majestic Theater. Tickets at artsemerson.org.
I'm Morning Edition's Marilyn Scherer, and you're listening to 89.7 WGBH, WGBH HD1 Boston, online at WGBHnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
At noon on BPR Live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library, has President Trump become part of the fake news problem? His op-ed in USA Today, which touts his own record on health care and slams the Democrats for theirs, turns out to be riddled with factual errors. We'll ask Emily Rooney if USA Today should have done some fact-checking before it hit the presses. Then travel writer Christopher Muthers here to talk about the flying squirrel that wasn't. In a case of another emotional support animal gone wild, a woman was kicked off a plane because of her bright-eyed and bushy-tailed companion.
The Boston Globe's Shirley Young joins us to talk about the Supreme Court and term limits. Then we wrap things up with our Friday news quiz with WGBH own extraordinary pledge masters Edgar B. Hurd III and Andy Hicks. If we're doing our job right, they should ace our news quiz. All that is next on Boston Public Radio 89.7 WGBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lori London. Pope Francis has notified Cardinal Donald Wuerl, the Archbishop of Washington, D.C., that he has accepted his offer to step down. NPR's Tom Gelton says Wuerl has been accused of helping to cover up the sex crimes of priests under his supervision.
Cardinal Wuerl has not himself been accused of sex abuse, unlike his predecessor in Washington, Theodore McCarrick, who had to step down as a cardinal in July. But as Bishop of Pittsburgh, Wuerl dealt sympathetically with several priests against whom serious complaints had been made, sending them for psychological evaluation, but allowing them to remain in the priesthood or approving payments to them. In accepting the Archbishop's resignation, Pope Francis noted that Wuerl could have defended himself by distinguishing between covering up crimes and committing mistakes, but that Wuerl had not tried to do so. He asked Wuerl to remain in charge of the Washington Archdiocese until a successor is named. Tom Gelton, NPR News.
It's all about response and recovery now in the aftermath of Hurricane Michael. The storm has caused massive damage, particularly on the coast of Florida. Supplies of food and water are being brought in, some by helicopter, in cases where roads are still impassable. FEMA Administrator Brock Long is asking residents who evacuated to wait a bit longer to return.
Quite honestly, it's a dangerous area to go back into. When you have this type of destruction, there's gas lines that are there, there's power lines that are down. In doing so, you're putting your life in danger, and we ask you to be patient.
Some areas saw several feet of storm surge, which smashed through windows, ripped off roofs, blew out brick walls. Michael is now being blamed for 11 fatalities, and a Florida Senate debate between Democratic Senator Bill Nelson and Republican Rick Scott has been postponed. An American pastor has been released from house arrest in Turkey. NPR's Scott Horsley reports President Trump had lobbied for Pastor Andrew Brunson's freedom.
President Trump tweeted this morning that his thoughts and prayers are with Andrew Brunson, that he hopes to have the pastor safely back home soon in the United States. Brunson, who's from North Carolina, was imprisoned in Turkey for 2 years as part of a roundup following the failed coup against President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The Trump administration had championed Brunson's cause, telling Erdogan his release would improve U.S.-Turkish relations. Brunson was transferred to house arrest earlier this summer. Today's order that he be freed entirely was warmly welcomed by evangelical Christians in this country. Scott Horsley, NPR News, the White House.
Stocks are recovering to some degree from the losses this week, but still on track for their biggest one-week loss since late March. The Dow up 162. This is NPR.
Good afternoon from the WGBH Radio Newsroom in Boston. I'm Henry Santoro. There's another guilty plea in the Massachusetts State Trooper overtime abuse scandal. WGBH Radio's Mary Blake reports.
45-year-old Gary Herman of Chester is the third trooper to plead guilty in federal court to embezzlement and will be sentenced in January. He's admitted he put in for hours he didn't work and covered it up by submitting phony citations to make it appear he was working overtime. Herman made over $220,000 in 2016. $12,000 of that was for fraudulent OT. Mary Blake, WGBH, Boston's local NPR.
An initial report from a federal investigation into the Merrimack Valley gas fires is faulting the Columbia Gas Company for not taking the proper safety measures to prevent that disaster. The report from the National Transportation Safety Board confirmed that too much pressure in those gas pipelines led to the dozens of fires and multiple explosions that have left thousands of people still without hot water or heat. According to the report, Columbia did not alert a subcontractor about a gas sensor connected to an old pipeline that they were replacing. That gas sensor registered a drop in pressure when the pipe was removed and mistakenly ordered more gas into the system, and that caused the explosions and the fires. And Columbia Gas Corps says everything will be back to normal, hopefully, by the middle of November. In the forecast, clearing sky this afternoon, high today, low to mid-60s, partly to mostly cloudy overnight tonight, low 40s. We're at 56 degrees outside our studios in Brighton right now.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Amazon Prime Video with The Romanovs, a new series from the creator of Mad Men, starring Diane Lane, Aaron Eckhart, Christina Hendricks, and Isabelle Huppert. A new episode every Friday on Prime Video.
I'm Henry Santoro. This is WGBH.
It's Friday. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 WGBH. We are broadcasting live as we do every Friday from the WGBH studio at the Boston Public Library.
Joining us is the woman whose face we put on a milk carton. We haven't seen her in so long. For her famous list of fixations and fulminations is Emily Rooney. She is back. She's
back in
host
tip-top form.
of Beat the Press. Really missed you, Emily. It's great to see you again.
We got a lot of emails about you, Emily.
We
When
did,
is Emily
actually.
coming back? And here you are. So we're very glad that you're back.
Frankly, I've been basically goofing off.
Good for
You're
you.
entitled.
Good for
Move
you.
the mic up just to
I'm
drop,
trying
if
that.
you would.
It's getting
Okay.
stuck here.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, let's start
we'll fix
talking.
it.
Let's
We'll
just
fix
do
it.
this. Good.
Okay, so let's start with this kind of an odd meeting between the president yesterday and Kanye West in the Oval Office, followed by cameras at every turn.
Well, let's actually, for those who missed this, and I assume that's nobody, here is a little bit of Kanye West speaking with the President of the United States at the White House.
You know, I love Hillary. I love everyone, right? But the campaign, I'm with her, just didn't make me feel as a guy that didn't get to see my dad all the time, like a guy that could play catch with his son. There was something about when I put this hat on, it made me feel like Superman. You made a Superman. That's my favorite superhero. And you made a Superman cake for me. I love you.
But I don't want to put you in that spot.
No, I'm standing in that spot. I love this guy right here. Let me give this guy a hug right here. I love this guy right here. Yeah.
Amen. That's really nice. And that's from the heart. I didn't want to put you in that position.
No.
But that's from the heart. Special guy.
Special guy. He's a
He's going to be the
special
next ambassador to the UN.
guy. I think. Don't assume he is not.
Well, you know, several people I've seen write and comment on the fact that Kanye West has had a lot of mental health issues. And if you watch this long interview, which went on for about a half hour, it
20
wasn't an
minutes,
interview, it was a
Live
kind of
broadcast.
a live broadcast. That was one thing that there was some concern about his mental health issues. And the second concern was CNN ran a juxtaposition of the Kanye West meeting and the devastation in Florida, and pointed out that the president had been very critical of Obama for doing anything during previous hurricanes, and they were criticizing the
Whoa,
president for
excuse
that.
me. And there's
I know,
a
but
third
you know-
reason is that it was covered at all. Is that
That's what I was going to
exactly.
say. Why were they even? I was embarrassed for our profession. In that Oval Office were 26 reporters and photographers. So it's the way I understand it. Kanye West was there for lunch, and then somebody in the news media asked if they could all follow in. So he was going to have some brief Oval Office meeting, and then when they all were invited in, that's when this whole thing unfolded, because it wasn't on the schedule. It wasn't supposed to happen. And then I think the president was so amused by it, he just let it ramble on.
And by the way, for those, just a little historical context before we play a little more sound, I assume you recall Republicans being critical of the disrespect that people like Barack Obama showed to the Oval Office because he put his feet up on the desk in the Oval Office. This was a visit where Kanye, or Ye as we now call him, said mother effer in the Oval Office,
in the Oval.
doing this rambling that was totally incoherent. And talk about disgracing the profession. April Ryan, who I'm a fan of, she reads a text from Ray J. Now, if you don't know who Ray J is, Ray J's famous as a rapper and one half of the Kim Kardashian sex tape. April Ryan reads this text on CNN, getting Ray J's text on Kanye West's visit to the White House. Here it is.
I talked to someone who's very familiar with the Kardashians, or used to be, text messaging with Ray J. You know who Ray J is. He was once close with Kim Kardashian.
No.
He said, I think that it's a great opportunity for young black entrepreneurs and artists to talk one-on-one with the president. And he goes on to say this, but in watching the tape that Ray J was watching from CNN, he did say he's a little concerned.
And by the way, just to add to this, one of our coworkers mentioned that when Kanye and Kim Kardashian got together, Ray J released that epic song, I Hit It First, meaning, I think everybody knows. I felt exactly the same. I just cannot believe that the press, which has been so critical of Donald Trump, did this thing itself.
Who was it that came into the Oval Office? Was it Kim Kardashian to get the guy out of jail?
Yes.
Woman out of jail.
Well, at least she
Kim
had
Kardashian.
That was a legitimate.
I thought so too.
And I defended that.
And it wasn't. We didn't have a million cameras.
No, it was one, and she was speaking rationally.
Yeah.
And very,
By the way, there was a
wasn't
still
even
photograph
familiar with
that came out of that was very dignified.
Yeah.
Where
Yes,
the president
yes.
takes pictures
And
with
she
visitors.
and the woman that was jailed jailed for this huge long sentence, a life sentence, I believe,
for
for some
something.
minor
It was a
role
drug thing.
in a drug thing.
Yeah.
So that was, but this was really bizarre. But it brings up the whole question of, and we talked about this.
And by the way,
Emily,
if that had been a woman talking like that,
I
going
could
off,
not
I mean,
agree
that
more.
would have been. Everybody would have been using the word crazy. That's their favorite term for women, anyway. Like crazy.
yeah. Well,
Unhinged.
I mean, people did talk about, as I said before, I guess he's got
I'm not familiar with his mental
bipolar
health.
disorder. He's been diagnosed and so forth and so on. I mean, he's talked about it himself. But it brings up the whole issue of the press covering the president obsessively when they're in these rallies.
Yeah.
I mean, even apparently Fox News has stepped back a bit from their nonstop
They're
coverage.
rethinking it because he's in rally mode most of the time. Even when he's allegedly there for another purpose, he turns it into a rally. And the news media really needs to think long and hard of this because it's giving him a free forum, essentially. It's essentially a political ad.
Well, apparently,
excuse me, it's not just a political ad, but it also blocks out coverage of a huge number of other things. I mean, the thing that I'm obsessed with, for example, the New York Times story that took a year to put together
The taxes
on
thing.
potential massive tax fraud
Got
by
no
Donald
traction.
Trump and his family. There's
I
a
know.
great tweet from Michael Grunwald from Politico who said this got about as much attention as Alan Dershowitz being dissed on Martha's Vineyard. But it's true. It got
That got
no
more.
cover. It probably did.
Yeah, because it was so serious and so dense. And in order to, I mean, I read the whole thing, but it was hard to be conversant about it after the fact. And everybody can be conversant about Kanye West.
well, I think you could be conversant about going in and trying to get your elderly father to change the will. I think you could be conversant about that, which is apparently what Donald Trump did. But when this talk about how to cover the president mentioned this 47-minute call to Fox and Friends from
He
President
does that every
Trump.
day. He talks to
For 47
he
minutes,
talks to
though?
Sean Hannity twice a day.
But this was talking about on air.
On air.
On air, I know.
Yeah, so it is a dilemma, and many people criticized the media in the run-up to the election when the press would
No one
cover.
thought he was going to win.
Well,
and
there
it was
the-
really good for ratings. to
Yeah,
have him
there was the
on.
empty podium. The
Yeah.
famous story about the empty podium that was on the networks or cable TV, CNN. I don't know if it was on Fox, but I think it was on all three of them, waiting for him to come
Waiting for
talk
him.
when he wasn't even the president yet.
Well, you know, we happen to have the first woman to be the executive producer of a national newscast in American
That's right.
history.
What do you
Here,
think?
What would if you were directing NBC or anybody else's coverage come post midterms leading up to 2020? What's the mandate?
We had these debates when I was executive producer. George Bush Sr. was president. And the question is always, what's the news value? If the president wants to make a statement at prime time at 9 o'clock at night, you had to weigh the depth of the news value. And that's what they have to look at. They can't just say, oh, it's the president, we're going to let him say whatever he wants to say.
Yeah, but
It's got to be.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Obviously, the rallies are a tougher thing because I think the default position is you don't cover. But for example, when he was in Mississippi 2 weeks ago and is mocking Christine Blasey Ford,
Yes.
I would say that's about as newsworthy and the crowd roaring.
But they
and
didn't know he
cheering
was
and-
going to do that.
That's right. But if they dipped into it in the middle of that
Well,
thing,
or even if they carried it after the fact.
Exactly.
That's a very good point.
That
Why
seems
does it
to me
have
to
be
be a good
live?
thing to
That's
do.
Because they're
point.
always there with the
That's a
they're
good point.
recording everything.
and take the significant bits out of the rally that are newsworthy. But I think covering those rallies from beginning to end, especially in the election, is a problem now, just as it was a problem before he was the president. I think.
Who's going to run against him?
I don't know.
I think a
Bloomberg
lot of people
changed his
are-
party this week. What do you think?
to Democrat. He's
Yeah.
76 years
I
old, which but in this era is not
It's
a
not that bad.
disqualifier.
No.
I think it is a problem, but apparently a lot of people don't. Isn't he the same age as, give or take a year, as Joe Biden?
About. Yeah.
And but I assume it's going to be a huge. It's going to be sort of like the third CD. Was it the third CD in Massachusetts? No, I mean you don't have that many opportunities,
Yeah.
and I think the conventional wisdom will be that Trump is very vulnerable, which I think is a risky conclusion. I think he's going to be stronger than people think, and I'm guessing it's going to be a huge field. And by the way, a number of callers when we were talking about the Clintons' tour. At least one caller and then an emailer or two said they think that Hillary Clinton is setting the stage for what she hopes is a third run. Do you think
Wow.
that's possible?
I think it's highly unlikely. Highly unlikely.
Well, it would be a suicide mission for the Democrats.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think she'd do better
mission.
than Elizabeth Warren.
Why do you say that?
I just do.
Why? Well, I know you
I
just
know.
do, but why do you say that?
I don't know. I think Elizabeth Warren. I like what she says. I like the way she says it, but she just doesn't have the presentation. I don't know. And I
Well-
think she's vulnerable on the whole Native American thing, and I don't know.
Yeah, well, at some point, I think we have to start thinking about people's politics, and stop because
Well,
women,
their politics are very similar.
women is who we do this to.
That's true.
I mean, let's face it.
Yes.
We don't like her voice, we don't like what she wears, we don't like how she looks, we don't like her makeup and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly right.
And we don't talk about Jeb Bush. I mean, Trump was right
we
about
did.
Jeb Bush. Well, Trump
we
talked
did
about
talk
him.
about it
He was
after
the front
Donald
runner.
Trump let
He
us-
was perceived
yeah.
to be the front runner. Why was he perceived to be the front runner? Where were his political skills? So I think Democrats need to be a little bit an independence, and everybody needs to be a little bit less sexist in their.
Good luck.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so let's move on to something else. People may not know this, but when you write op-eds or opinion pieces in a newspaper, you have to cite where you got your facts. You just can't say the sky is purple without saying where you found out the sky is purple.
Well, explain. By the way, when you submit an op-ed every week, your
Yeah.
story runs
You have
Monday.
to cite
Explain what
the links.
editors ask you.
Well, you have to cite the links so that they know you're not making things up out of whole cloth. You say 5 million people were at some whatever. You have to show where you found the 5 million people, a legitimate news source, not illegitimate.
Even if you're writing context of your opinion, you have the
Even
facts.
in
Yes,
an
right,
opinion piece, which I do occasionally for the Boston Globe. Anyway,
Every Monday, actually.
well, this Monday, I took last Monday
Okay,
off.
fine. Every
anyway,
Monday except
most
last
Mondays. but anyway, so Donald Trump writes an op-ed piece for USA Today, and people don't know this. USA Today, one of the great things they've done for years is they've run opposing views. Say they were talking about the nurses bill in Massachusetts about staffing for nurses. They'd have the pro-nursing bill, we want
love
the
that, too.
staffing rule, or we have the opposite side, we don't want the staffing rule, and they'd have them running right next to each other. They ran this op-ed by President Trump that was full of basically lies. Here's something
Definitely
he said.
misinformation.
He said, well, I think I call them lies. As a candidate, he said, I promised we would protect coverage for patients with pre-existing conditions and create new health care insurance options that would lower premiums. I have kept that promise, and health insurance premiums are coming down. In fact, Trump has supported the Republicans' effort to get rid of pre-existing conditions. That is a lie, and premiums are not going down; they're going up, and they would be going down.
Or how about the Democrats supporting the dismantling of Social Security? Where is that?
Yeah,
I haven't seen that.
so it's full of lies. I'm tired of calling them misstatements. They are just out and out
Almost
lies.
every line, by the way.
Yeah, almost every line. You can go through it yourself and see it.
Anyway, the USA Today defended this.
They defended this by saying that they did fact check it. Well, how could they possibly
and that
have
they like to
fact-checked it?
offer a diversity of opinion. What in the world are you talking about? What diversity of opinion? And by the way, Trump has the biggest audience in the world right now on his Twitter account. I think USA Today has a circulation of what, like 300,000? It's not that great. They didn't need this. And the publisher and the editor, I believe, are kind of middle of the road. I don't think they're big Trump supporters or anything. I'm just wondering, Did they think it was going to sell newspapers, or what was the?
Can I clarify, though, something that I know you said so that people don't misunderstand what I think all three of us are saying? The opinion of the president, if he wants to put it if he wants to state a set of facts and say, I think this is an atrocity for America, it's going to lead to our downfall, going to croak the economy, that is perfectly fine.
That's
And
opinion.
as President of the United States, it should be published, whether it's on his Twitter
I
account.
disagree.
Or why should
It shouldn't be in a newspaper.
Oh, I don't agree with that. If the President of the United States wants to write an occasional op-ed and it's fact-based to voice his opinion,
but that's
he shouldn't get
the
space.
problem is who gave the great line? Everybody's entitled to their own opinions. Nobody's entitled to their
Daniel
own facts.
Moynihan.
Daniel Moynihan.
Former
Thank you very
senator
much.
from New York.
And that's the problem with this op-ed. You can say that, I'm the greatest president ever in the history of the world. That's your opinion. You cannot make up facts and run them without any kind of rebuttal. And USA Today did a terrible disservice because I do think of their news
it's
coverage
embarrassing.
as generally being a middle-of-the-road
I think it
paper.
is too, yeah.
And they're great when you're traveling around the country.
Right,
you can pick
right.
it up in your hotel. You can get the news there. But this is just
No, it's
indefensible, I think.
And they're claiming to have fact checked it when they absolutely. The Washington Post did the main fact check on
Glenn
this.
Kessler did a great
Yes.
piece in the Washington Post.
Yeah. Okay.
Readers are invited to submit opposing views. A reader is going to come on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, and the problem is that it scares people. I mean, it just scares people. Talking about how the Democrats are trying to get rid of
Dismantling
Medicare,
Social
you're not going
Security
to have any
or whatever.
Medicare, you're not going to have any Social Security. It's very scary.
By the way, everybody's getting a Social Security raise in 2019. If they
Yeah.
didn't know that.
So anyway, okay. Where else are we going?
What else?
Are we
My
missing
younger
something?
daughter just walked by and waved to
Was
all
that
of
your
us.
daughter?
That was my younger daughter,
sweet.
yes.
Oh, I
You
didn't see her.
No, she walked outside.
Oh, okay.
But putting can I stay on this for 1 second?
Yes.
While Emily was asking the question, why did USA Today run it? I don't have a good answer for that. It's clear to me why Donald Trump offered it, which is the people who mostly follow him on Twitter, other than news people, are probably people who are pretty sympathetic to his cause. USA Today is a pretty middle-of-the-road
It
thing.
is.
As
It
Marty
is.
said, he gets access to probably a couple 100,000 independents who care about the news, who he wouldn't have access
That's
to
true.
likely
People at the
otherwise.
airport.
So I
That's
think
true.
it's a huge asset
Yeah.
for him to be
I
able
guess
to
you're right.
get his at least his quote facts out. I'm
And
sorry,
the
Margaret.
fact that everybody's talking about it helps also
I
because everyone
agree
never
with
goes
that.
and reads it because they want to know
I
what he
agree.
said.
I agree.
Okay, you want to say something before we get to your the reason you're here about the Red Sox?
I'm just looking forward to the game
I'm
on
looking
Saturday.
forward to the
Marjorie
game.
says, "Are we in the World Series
Oh
yet?"
my God.
I do not follow sports.
Who are we playing?
You know what you
Really?
should do on Beat the Press? I know you love getting advice from me. I said this the other day to Trenny Kuznarek. Our political predictions in the show are pretty pathetic.
Yeah.
I will admit, we're wrong more often than not. There is no group of, quote, journalists who know less about what they're talking about than people in the sports media. After the Red Sox lost that game with David Price, game 2, they're finished,
Okay.
they're done, well, you're
All right,
one of
you
those
know-
people.
You know what I wanted to do?
What's that?
But I was just too lazy. At the beginning of the season in April, I wanted to start collecting the daily headlines about the Red Sox
That's great.
in the Boston Globe. It's always doomsday, no matter what. And then, when they start doing better, there's one that's sort of slightly happy one. But if you could just string together, it would be predominantly negative.
Well, can
With
I-
the pitching and everything.
Can I add
would
one
be-
thing to that? Bob Kraft is viewed as a saint. Is there ever been a better owner than John Henry?
No, how about
the
that?
guy has brought World Series championship after World Series, and people make fun of
I
the
know,
guy.
I know.
I mean, he's delivered. Why are you making a face at
Because
me?
we're running out of time for Emily's
Oh,
list.
I'm sorry. Okay. In any case, maybe someday you should do that when you're not feeling lazy. Okay. So this is the reason she's here, and the reason we really missed her. Obviously, we're a little rusty. Okay, we would have played the music.
Out of
here it
control.
is.
Oh, here it
How
is.
about common sense? Doesn't matter. Why not? This is the kind of thing that drives people crazy. It's your right. Doesn't matter. I have absolutely no interest.
Okay, we do have a lot of interest.
Okay, I'm
Thank
back in
God.
good form.
You are?
Oh, yeah.
If you say so yourself. Okay,
If
take
I
it
say
away.
so. This is my Emily's list today. I'm calling bogus on a bunch of things here
Ooh.
today. Calling bogus. Number one, I'm calling bogus on Banksy, the artist. First of all,
The shredding
his
artist.
artwork is horrible. Horrible. Secondly, I'm calling bogus on the fact that Sotheby's didn't know this was going to happen. And I'm also calling bogus on the buyer, who I believe probably knew she was going to end up with a piece that was more valuable than $1.4 million. And she's keeping it, by the way.
Didn't Jared say to us a couple days ago that he thought everybody might have been in on this thing? I'll
think I
argue.
heard
I
that,
think
yeah.
We
he
had a very
believes that,
astute emailer who said that they carried this painting
Yes.
in a way that does not normally happen,
Of
leading her to
course.
believe that it was
you got a
setup.
shredder, and of course
Mhm.
it was a setup. I'm calling bogus on it, right? I'm also calling bogus on Melania Trump, who I've actually come to respect in some regards. But her calling herself the most bullied person in America.
Which she did in the ABC News interview airing
is
tonight.
just outrageous. I mean, just by comparison to, say, Michelle Obama, I mean, it doesn't even compare to the kind of stuff. People have made fun of that stupid jacket she wore. I don't really care, do you? That was a terrible faux pas. As were some. All right, so we comment on some of her, but she hasn't been bullied. That's just wrong.
She's not been bullied.
But again, those are the words she used. The interview hasn't aired yet, but excerpts have come out tonight. I'm with you. What's
All right,
next?
calling bogus on the Saudi explanation over the missing journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Oh, yeah, he went into the embassy and he snuck out. Apparently, he didn't want to get married, so he didn't take his marriage license with him. This whole thing is going to come tumbling down. We were just looking at some CNN stuff. I think we're going to see all the footage pieced together. The Turkish embassy clearly has, the Saudis, the Turkish government has some video, some evidence.
Of his murder.
I think
of
so.
his being beaten, tortured, and murdered.
Yeah.
I think they
it's
killed him right
horrible.
away and then cut him into
And by the way, to the credit of this Congress, in bipartisan fashion, they've demanded action against the Crown Prince there by our government, and Donald Trump
and
is
that's
resisting.
why he's resisting,
Yeah.
because of all the money for the arms, right?
I think that's right.
Believe it or not, I am calling bogus on Bob Woodward's book, Fear. It's everybody, it's like got the biggest run up. I was trying to buy it on the Cape, you couldn't do it. When I finally got a close look at it, about 3 chapters are really, really interesting. And the rest of it is this crashing bore about the 2016 election. It's not
A
good.
lot of it's about the campaign. You're absolutely right.
Most of it.
Yeah.
It's bogus.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
think that
interesting.
I think that what was excerpted and people
The
had talked
stuff,
about.
yeah, the stuff about Steve Bannon
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff, and then after that, so I'm calling, don't bother.
Although I do think it was.
Don't bother.
Yeah. All right, now I know he's a friend of ours and a friend of yours,
Uh-oh.
and he's a frequent guest on this show. But I'm calling bogus on Alex Beam's critique of old politicians. He called out Mitch McConnell, Charles Grassley, Nancy Pelosi. Dianne Feinstein said, just because you're old doesn't mean you can't be good. We just talked about Michael Bloomberg. We talked about Joe Biden. Sometimes people do get old and doddering, and they start saying things that are really dumb. Okay, but that doesn't, just because you're old, doesn't make you.
Well, you know something? I thought one of the oldest ones there, who was Dianne Feinstein, was great in the hearings. I mean,
She was okay.
Grassley just sounded to me like he was a little doddering.
The worst was Lindsey Graham, and he's not in his 80s, right?
Well, I would say Chuck Grassley talking
He was
about
pretty
why
bad.
there were no women on the Judiciary Committee. And
Yeah.
someday we'll have this discussion, but I am an ageist on this, and I think it's time for some new blood, and they do have to go. By the way, it doesn't mean they have to go out on an iceberg.
Well,
and
how do you
push
feel
down
about
the
Joe
Atlantic.
Biden and
Just-
Michael Bloomberg?
I think they're too old to run for the
Jim,
presidency. I
can you
do.
please make an exception for aging? You know, is it talk show host?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, it's a whole
We
different
don't,
thing.
we don't
All right,
want
here's
that.
something I'm totally calling bogus on. So all the networks do this. They go run out and they talk to all these people who decide they're not going to leave. They're going to stay sheltered in during the storms. They never go back to see how those people did. They only go back to find the ones that, left. And there's never any follow-through with the guy who decided to board up his...
I'm with you.
Not one.
I'm with
Not
you.
one. All right.
We have
Finally,
time for
I know
one
this
more.
is
Okay.
this is an old saw of mine. I'm calling bogus on this latest Facebook scam, which everybody falls for. People believe they've been hacked and then post, don't accept a new friend request from me. I've been hacked. No, you idiot. When you repost it, that's when you're hacked. Everybody doesn't understand. Every paste and cut and paste thing is a scam. Every single one of them. They're all algorithm scams. Nobody seems to understand this. You haven't been hacked. Just ignore it. Delete it.
How do we get through the last few weeks
I don't know.
without you? What are you doing
Really?
tonight, quickly?
Oh, quickly, what am I doing tonight? Well, of course, I'm doing the
USA Today
journalist.
thing, yeah.
We're doing the
Oh,
USA
and
Today
Khashoggi.
and Khashoggi. And then we're doing this thing on the climate report thing out of the UN, how everybody leads with weather every night, but they don't really talk
Good.
about
Good.
how good deal with
Amen.
climate change.
We were
Just-
supposed to talk about that. but we didn't have
ABC
time.
does nothing but the weather. They are the national weather forecast. They're the weather channel now, but they don't talk really
We
about
know what these meteorologists are some of the worst climate deniers around. It's really terrible.
know.
As a class, they are.
Yeah.
Emily, we missed you. We're
Okay,
thrilled you're back.
thanks.
Emily
Rooney
Rooney.
joins us every Friday for a famous list. You can keep up with her
All
Friday
right.
nights right here on WGBH Channel 2 for Beat the Press, which is on every Friday night at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much, Emily. Coming up, for 3 years in a row, travelers have ranked Logan Airport among the worst in the country. Travel writer Christopher Muther joins us for that and more next on 89.7 WGBH, Boston Public Radio, live from the WGBH studio at the Boston Public Library.
Support for our programs comes from you and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts, helping you connect the dots with a Medicare plan that fits your life. For more information, you can call 888-800-8204. Nothing is ever black and white, and that's why Basic Black is back for another season. Watch the 51st season of public television's longest-running show about issues facing communities of color, tonight at 7:30 on WGBH2.
If you listen to Boston Public Radio 3 hours a day, that's 15 hours a week, 60 hours a month, and 720 hours a year. Maybe it's time you pitched in. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at wgbhnews.org.
Okay, one of the hottest items is available right now when you pitch in for $12.50 a month. We will thank you with the just not to be missed Smug Mug. It has a very smug picture of Jim Browder. You couldn't imagine any smugger. He's kind of looking down at all of us in a very condescending way, and you don't want to miss it. Because if you don't like it, when he sounds, if you complain about him in the radio, you can look at him and yell at him at the mug at the same time. It'll give you a lot of satisfaction. Anyway, that's for $12.50 a month, which is the best way to give because it's a sustainer membership, which means that we can budget here. So it really means a lot to us. It's only available till 2 o'clock, and then the Smug Mug will be gone. Until there's another smug photograph of Jim, we can take that one.
Why do you think it is the hottest item? What would you draw from that? Why do you think it's so popular?
It's the expression on your face. 888-897-9424, WGBHnews.org.
We want to thank Maria in Wellesley, Gail in Sudbury, Adam in Medway, Linda in Littleton. This is the most popular thing that comes up in the drive. I don't understand it at all. 888-897-9424. By the way, you can become a new member for as little as $5 a month. Whatever you have, $5 a month, $500 a month, whatever it is to help support the work our colleagues do here and us at WGBH. And as we say almost every day we're doing Pledge, this is a psychological lift for us beyond a financial lift. It feels so good to know, like we learned last night at the gala when so many people were so nice, that people care about the work that we and all of our, what are you about to say, all of our colleagues do. Go ahead, Margaret.
No, it's just that I didn't realize that it had kind of a headline on the mug.
Return of the Smug Mug.
Return of the Smug Mug.
It says that,
It says it right over your head.
That's
Return
funny.
of the Smug
Okay, we heard that. You don't have to say it again. And it says something else on it. Lightly, what does it say?
It says highly live, local, and highly caffeinated Boston Public Radio.
Let me ask you a question. If there was gone at 2 o'clock. If there was a crappy picture of you,
I'd be devastated.
Would you find it as humorous?
I would not be able to come out from under the table. I would just, have to stay home forever. That would be like when I wrote a bad column, I couldn't get up,
Okay, so the number is 888-897-9424, WGBH.org. A lot of people mentioned to us at the Chef's Gala last night, the Smug Mug, were bemoaning the fact that they didn't get one last time.
Well, we got them.
This goes at 2 o'clock. It is done for this pledge drive, so call fast.
888-897-9424, WGBHnews.org. And we really, really appreciate people, busy lives, taking your time out to contribute either by phone or by email, which is really pretty quick. The number again, 888-897-9424, WGBHnews.org. For $12.50 a month, you too can be an owner of the unbelievable Smug Mug, actually the return of the Smug Mug.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Holding the Smug Mug now is our next guest, live from the WGBH studio at Boston Public Library. Don't say it, Christopher. Let me just say that. You know when you're in a plane and the higher up you get, everything on the ground gets smaller, the cars, the houses, the skyscrapers? What I don't understand, how is it that everything inside the plane seems to get smaller too, specifically the seats? Well, Congress apparently is working to change that. So if our politicians can actually reach across the proverbial aisle, does that mean we'll get more legroom? In the literal one, joining us to talk about this and other related headlines of Boston Globe's Christopher Muther. Christopher is the self-described most unpopular travel writer in Boston. Congratulations on that, Christopher.
Why, thank you. I know you've been saying that about me for years, so now I've confirmed it for you.
Apparently you have. Great to see you, Chris. What do you think of the mug, by the way?
Well, I don't understand why you're so much more airbrushed than Marjorie
on
this mug.
Thank you very
it's
much.
like I'm watching the Liz Taylor White Diamonds
That's
commercial.
right. Absolutely.
This has always brought me luck.
Absolutely. So last time you were here, Christopher Muther, we talked about people having sex on airplanes.
Oh, yes.
And we asked, Jim actually urged
No,
listeners.
wait. Before, tell them how many, wasn't there some huge percentage of people in a story you wrote who said in a poll that they had seen people have sex on an airplane?
Yes, they've seen or they have or they've had so there was a percentage of people who'd had sex with a stranger, sex with a crew member. It was ridiculous.
So what did we do, Marjorie? Again, we asked
Well, you
people?
urged
I
listeners to
did.
send in their sex in a plane stories, and we have a couple of them. Would you like to share a couple, Jim?
Go right ahead. Well, here's LJ from Framingham. Well, I have not verifiably seen anyone have sex on a plane. Poll. Shear was on Kimmel this week describing being woken up by seatmates on a flight to Orlando, engaging in what he called a mutual handoff, in quotes. That's one. There are a lot of hands under blankets.
Yes.
Art from West Bridgewater said that.
You know what's weird?
We got a lot
there
of
was
emails.
a mother-daughter team. That
Oh, wait.
seems a little creepy.
No, it's
right?
worse. And they go into, who's that from? They go into the restroom.
Alan.
And then they go in the restroom with the two guys they had met on the plane. And then they switch the guys and go back into
Yeah.
the restroom.
Yeah.
Oh
Hello.
my God!
Thank
It's
you.
almost as disturbing as this mug. I'm
Yeah,
sorry
there's
to
a
cut you
lot.
off.
Apparently, a lot of people have seen this, and a lot of people report a lot of thumping in the bathrooms, especially if they sit in the back row of the airplane where they can hear what's going on. So let's move on from all that.
Well, let's not move on. I think
Okay.
what you should do a follow-up piece with some real stories here, which obviously bear out some of the polling.
But
that
do you
you're
think people
reporting.
would be willing to use their real names in these stories?
Probably not.
I believe one was Kanye. That was one person who. We're talking to Christopher Muther.
So you also have a proposal about taking away liquor on airplanes, and a lot of the sex on the airplanes occurs after people have had a couple of cocktails.
I'm sure it loosens inhibitions
Yes,
very,
it does.
very quickly.
It does, but a lot of bad stuff happens after
A
people.
lot of bad stuff. You know, there was a survey a couple of years ago that found that nearly 10,000 violent disruptions happen on airplanes. A third of those are a result of people drinking too much. So there have been calls to ban alcohol on planes, which I realize is next to impossible because people would have the jitters if they didn't have their pre-flight cocktail. But I feel like there should be a cap on what people should drink. And I feel it's totally reasonable to go back to, because this was the case for decades and decades, a 2-drink per passenger per flight max.
But, I think you raised this point, which would be a loophole. By the way, Marjorie, I'm a very light drinker. I have very low capacity. I am not a great flyer, particularly on smaller planes. I get really, really, really nervous. I don't just drink on the flight more than I ordinarily would. I drink in the before I
bar.
get on the flight.
Exactly, yeah.
So how do you know when I get on and I've had 2 drinks that, you know what I mean?
That's one of the big problems is all of this falls onto the shoulders of the gate agents or the flight attendants, and they don't have a breathalyzer to check how much you've had. So in the UK, where that's been a huge problem, they've been trying to crack down at the airport level, and they have a campaign, One Too Many, which lets people know what the fines are, what the jail.
But is it left up to the discretion of the individual, whatever their TSA is?
Or
flight attendants or whatever.
So in the bars themselves, it's left up to the discretion of the bartenders if they determine if someone's drunk. For airplanes, it's left up to the flight attendant or the gate agent. If the gate agent sees someone who's really drunk or wobbly coming toward a plane, they have the right to sort of step in. However, if that's the case, there's always the chance, let's say someone just had a stroke, and they're showing the same signs as someone who's drunk, and then there's a whole possibility for lawsuits and discrimination.
Well, the other problem is, in light of what we talked about, if you leave it up to the flight attendants, a lot of the flight attendants are in the bathroom with the passenger during the flight, so you can't really, but let me tell you what the other problem, I know you mentioned this too, which is the obvious reason it's never going to happen. By the way, I support your idea. I think it's really a wise and fair compromise. It's like the fees. I'm assuming, didn't you write this? The airlines make a ton of dough.
Yeah,
huge markup on the alcohol.
Fees. Yeah, exactly. That's why you're never going to see this happen, unless the government steps in, which they're not going to. But it's such a huge revenue maker. More than $100 million a year, and that's just in the U.S. The top 5 airlines in the U.S.
And does the research suggest that a lot of the crap that happens on flights, I'm assuming they conclude, is related to drinking? Is that?
Oh yeah, and every week there's another viral story, either squirrel or sex or dead dog and an overhead bin related. But a lot of them have to do with alcohol. There was a story just a couple of weeks ago about the bro flying from Phoenix to Boston who started doing pull-ups on the overhead bin because I guess he couldn't wait to get to the gym. And
you didn't read this one?
He got belligerent when people said, please stop doing pull-ups. And They had to divert, throw them off the plane, and that cost airlines tens of thousands of dollars. In some cases, they've started charging passengers when that happens. I haven't heard of that happening a lot.
Really?
Yes.
That would put a stop to a lot of
It would
shenanigans.
definitely put a stop
And
to
the
it.
guy was sauced, we assume.
Oh, he was totally sauced.
Totally
yes.
sauced. Oh,
By
speaking
the way,
of,
it's also scary. If you're on a flight and I'm not a great flyer, not only because I'm a little nervous, but also because I'm huge,
right,
and don't fit into any of the seats. It is when someone gets loud and boisterous. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
You don't know
Yeah.
that it's only because they had an. I mean, it gets scary. So that's,
People are already in high anxiety when they're
They
on a
are.
plane, and you throw anything into that, and it's just really going to throw people off.
so you mentioned before squirrels on airplanes. Apparently, this woman got on a flight in Orlando going to Cleveland with a emotional support squirrel.
So
Yes.
she said.
And
Yeah.
she had gotten in touch with, I think it was Frontier beforehand, and said, I'm bringing a support animal with me. They said, okay. She didn't mention it was a squirrel. But this is kind of a long, maybe a new tradition where last year there was an artist who tried to bring an emotional support peacock
Oh, I remember that story.
on
yeah.
a flight. So now airlines are finally starting to say, okay, we're limiting this to a dog or a cat in some cases. I don't know rabbits because rodents, I think, across the board
Yeah,
are a
rodents.
no.
I think that's right.
Yeah, so it's ended up being a little bit of a problem. There was a story, I think it was in the New Yorker a few years ago, which has been my favorite story about this ever, where a woman went online, got certificates, and started bringing emotional support animals. She brought like a llama into a convenience store, a snake into Chanel, and said she wanted a matching purse for it, and then she brought a pig onto an airplane on JetBlue. And at the time, this wasn't as much of an issue, but with a certificate for that she got online for like $100 and something she bought on Amazon, which said emotional support animal,
Yes.
she was able to bring these on. And so, finally, I think people, it's kind of a cheeky thing people are doing. I can imagine the peacock was probably an art project. I'm doing air quotes
We
when I
noticed
say
it.
that.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah.
you're but I mean, I assume there's a legitimate need on part of some. But when you
Yes.
bring a legit, companion animal on or whatever, like a cat or a dog, whatever, where do you put it? I mean, what are the rules? You fill out the form in advance.
Yes.
You say, I need this. They sign off, and the airline sign off and say yes. Does it sit
Exactly.
in your lap?
That animal goes in the cabin with you because it's an emotional support animal. So, there's a dog. Someone on Facebook, one of my friends posted a picture of a dog, well-behaved, sitting under a seat. I've seen the same for cats. Even non-emotional support cats I've seen sitting in business
but
business
suppose
class.
you've
Yes.
got a big dog. I mean, you're going to buy a seat for the Great Dane?
You can
or
buy a seat
you
for the
buy-
Great
okay.
Dane. Yeah, I mean, airlines will let you buy a seat for
Okay.
your animal, or if it's a small animal that can sit in your lap like a toddler. And these cats are quieter than toddlers.
Yeah.
So
You know,
why not?
Speaking of him, we're talking to Christopher Mueller, travel writer for the Boston Globe, the most hated travel writer, I think.
Why, thank
Whatever
you.
it is, unpopular or something. You probably never read, well, I don't know if you read this story or not. When you're talking about the emotional companion squirrels, did you ever read a story? It was in your paper about this squirrel, Pepito. Did you ever read that?
I may have read that
You're
story,
right.
yes.
Did you write that story?
I did write that
Can
story.
you tell? I have to say,
That
if
was
I had to
a
pick my
great
favorite 10
story.
stories,
Great
tell us
story.
about Pepito, if you will.
I mean, Pepito essentially was a bit of an emotional support animal.
This almost made me cry, this story, but I love this story. Go ahead.
And a gentleman who was working on renovating a house found the squirrel injured walking across the street. He was so absorbed with renovating the house, he didn't have time for anything else. And the squirrel became a wonderful distraction for him. And before I wrote the story, I was like, well, a squirrel is a rat with a bushy tail. But after that, I started seeing how sweet his reactions were with Pepito. And they really did bond in a way that was, when he finally had his born-free moment and had to let Pepito back out into the wild, it was quite sad for everybody involved, but Pepito would still come and visit, and I'm sad to say Pepito is no longer with us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So make like Dionne
How does
Warwick
he-
and say a little prayer.
How does he know? Did he find his body?
He
Oh,
found
that's
his body, yes.
Was he hit by a car?
He doesn't know the cause
Oh,
of
okay,
death.
so
By the way,
might
wasn't the guy a former doctor and did
Former-
physical therapy
Yeah,
and stuff?
he
with it?
developed like a routine for Pepito to do
Love
physical
this story.
therapy to get his back leg working again. It was more than a year that they had this wonderful relationship.
And he talked about how the squirrel would purr when he pet his head.
He would, and he'd
yeah.
make these adorable noises when he ate pineapples. It really melts your heart.
You're not an animal person, but let me ask you a stupid
Who,
question
me?
anyway. No,
Oh.
Christopher Muther.
How do you know he's not an animal
There's so many
person?
squirrels out now. You are? Okay.
Oh, yes,
so
yes.
when the squirrels die naturally, old age, or that whatever happens, I assume that predators come for the bodies because you don't see squirrels' bodies
That's
lying
a
around
very
your
astute
backyard.
observation. That's true. What do you think about that?
I've seen plenty of squirrels on the side of the road.
Yeah, you have.
But,
Yeah.
then they end up in stews in Maine. So, sorry.
I don't think we're supposed to say
Oh
that.
my God!
We
Oh
gotta
my
take a
God!
break, Margaret.
I forget that it's pledge. It's pledge time.
He's
okay.
not leaving, though.
No, he's not. We're going to keep talking to Christopher Muther, our Globe travel writer, right after we take a quick pledge break. We'll be right back.
This is Boston Public Radio on WGBH. Made possible thanks to listener contributions. Your support of just $5 or $10 a month keeps Jim and Marjorie and the great conversations coming your way. Please take a moment to give now at WGBHnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Okay, so this is another opportunity for Marjorie to ridicule my photograph on the return of the smug bug, which just coincidentally happens to be the hottest item during Pledge Week. Here, that's the good news. It's back. The bad news is it is gone in an hour and 15 minutes for this whole pledge drive. If you want the return of the smug mug, which is quite popular, $12.50 a month now, or $150 in one pop, $12.50 a month as a sustainer. $12.50 a month will come out of your checking account or your credit card or whatever, and you will own the very popular Boston Public Radio smug mug. It says Return of the Smug Mug. It's got the logos. It says live, local, and highly caffeinated. It's actually a really nice mug in addition to the one great photograph and the one horrible photograph. But much more importantly, not to Marjorie, but to me, you not only get the smug mug, but you get to support radio that we believe you care deeply about, or you wouldn't be listening. So please call 888-897-9424 or WGBHnews.org. Let me thank Michaela from East Weymouth, who's already contributed, Carol from North Smithfield, Rhode Island, Manny in Boston, Joanne in Medfield. Now we got a break because Marjorie would like to ridicule me. Go ahead.
I'm not going to ridicule. I'm going to change
yes, you are.
tack. No, I'm not, actually. I'm just going to say that the majority of our contributions come from our listeners, from small contributions. It's not from the government, as people think. It's from listeners. So it's really important to us that you can throw a little money toward us to keep us on the air and all the great stuff that goes on at WGBH. It's not just us, although I really appreciate it if you do it before 2.
Why is that?
Because then we can get credit for raising the money, and that means a lot to me. And
So
the other
selfish.
thing is, of course, is the smug mug we've been talking about all day is only available to 2, so that's the second reason. But
You don't even have one, do you?
yes, I do.
Oh, you do have one.
Yes, I do.
You only have one.
I have it right there in the morning, Jim. So first thing I wake up in the morning, there
Which
you
side
are,
does it turn?
condescendingly looking at me.
Really? That's a good. It gets your juices going
Gets my
to start
juices
the
going
day?
for the rest of the day. The number is 888-897-9424, WGBHnews.org. It's really quick to give online. If you can swing it, a sustainer membership for $12.50 a month will get you the smug mug. That's the best way to go because it's a smaller hit on your wallet. It's a better deal for our budget so they can plan. But we really appreciate anything that you guys can give because you are what keeps us on the air and everybody else here at WGBH. 888-897-9424, WGBHnews.org. Would you like to say anything else about the smug mug?
Yeah, I
Jim?
mean, Tori, who works with us, this is unnecessary, Tori, types a message, which I have already made. If you're left-handed, she says it's better.
Yeah.
Why is it better?
Because you see me instead of see you, but I am left-handed. You know what?
What?
I drink it with my right hand, Jim.
888-897-9424 or WGBHnews.org, and thanks. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to Pepito from the... Oh, no, we're not. We're talking... sorry. Let me start again. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking with the Boston Globe's travel writer and columnist, Christopher Muther. By the way, I just want to say that story is really tough.
It's one of the great ones of all
I'm
time.
sad that a squirrel is dead. How incredible. I am. I'm really sad
How
about
long do they
this.
live? I don't even know.
I
What's
don't
the
know.
average lifespan of a squirrel?
I think it's like a parrot, like 80 years. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
So this next story I find fascinating because I think people have a legitimate complaint about how we're all squished into airplanes, that we're
Yes.
too close to the front row in front of us, and the seats are really small, and that's really difficult for people like Jim. But I'm
Or
surprised
for any people.
that that anybody expects a bill demanding the FAA to do anything about this is going to get anywhere because we're with a deregulatory administration right now. So
It's true.
the FDA is trying to do that. The bill would want the FDA to do that.
The
FAA.
FAA.
Yes.
FAA.
The
I'm really
FDA is
goofing
that's what
this
you
up.
need when
Yeah.
it turns out you're stuck in your seat.
When you're in
actually.
cattle class, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what do you think? Is this going to happen?
Well, people were so excited that this, when you hear people that there's going to be a government study of minimum seat sizes, minimum pitch, which is the amount of space between you and the seat in front of you, you think this is great because people have been complaining about it. Even the people on the transportation panel have been complaining about this. But the problem, though, is when you say minimum seat size, it doesn't mean they're going to give you more space. The mandate isn't more comfort. It's safety. What they do is they have a 90-second evacuation test for all airlines that have to go through approval.
What's that mean?
It means you have 90 seconds to get everybody off the plane safely. And this has been the case.
Are you kidding me?
Takes me 90 seconds to get out of my seat on the plane every time
This
I
has
get
been
on.
since 1965, 67. This rule has been in place. And the contention is that, back then seats were bigger, people were smaller. But airlines still run this test, and the FAA still contends that this is the case. Someone actually brought this to district court. Someone from a flyers, what's the word I'm looking for? Representative group, someone who represents
Passengers like association
Yes,
kind of thing.
thank
yeah.
you.
You're
So
welcome.
they contend that people can knock it off in 90 seconds, but they run computer models, they run drills, and they want to see this in action. They want to see it with real passengers. But the FAA has sort of stayed by this claim. So if, for instance, they can do it with smaller seats, they'll do it. So there's a chance this might actually shrink seats
Can I tell you,
further.
don't worry, I'm not going to tell the story about the air marshals threatening to
Yeah.
take me off the plane from London because the little punk kid in front of me did his seat all the way back. One, I do
How
not.
many times are
I'm
we
not
gonna
going to
have
tell
to
it
hear
again.
that
I know,
I'm
you're
not
telling
going to tell it
stories
again.
over and
One,
over
I
and
don't accept the notion that the rules should allow that the seat in front of you can be in full recline. That is ridiculous. Number two, here's what I
Agreed.
don't understand politically, by the way, and I mean this sincerely. We all know that Congress is owned by corporate America. I don't mean that rhetorically. It is owned by
Yes.
corporate America. However, almost everybody in the country who votes flies at some point. It would seem to me that the average member of Congress, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, if he or she could go back home and said, we stood up to the airline industry and forget the FAA, we statutorily mandate, which they have the power to do, we statutorily mandated that the minimum seat size is X, the maximum pitch, or whatever that word is you said, is Y, they'd be carried around in sedan chairs all over the country. No, I'm serious. So is it because the airline industry is so unbelievably powerful that Congress doesn't have the you-know-what to do anything on a problem that everybody in America suffers through?
Well, you raise a good point right there, the fact that the airline industry is so powerful and they have a very strong relationship with the FAA, which is good in some sense and bad in the other.
But Congress could overrule. They have more power than the FAA. The FAA's unwillingness to do the right thing or their willingness to do the wrong thing could be statutorily overridden by Congress.
But then you go back into the area that Marjorie was talking about, which is regulation. And we know the airline
that's a good
industry
point,
was
actually.
deregulated
That's a
in
very
the
good point.
70s. So therefore, you can't have Congress charging in and making these mandates, or you need to come up with a new organization that can deal with all of it.
Can I remake another tired old point? For those who think I'm exaggerating about the power of corporations, particularly the airline industry here, when we spent a long time talking about the compensation fund for victims and their
9/11,
families
yeah.
from 9/11, that legislation had nothing to do with helping real people. It was initiated, wasn't it Tom Daschle's wife, who was the majority leader, was a lobbyist for the airline industry,
save them.
to hold airlines immune from litigation, or at least cap their liability. So it wasn't about the passengers, even though it was, or the passengers who lost their lives, or people in the buildings who lost their lives, but rather to protect the airline industry. It's disgraceful.
It really is. And I mean, in this case, a lot of Congress people were saying, I've championed this bill it will require minimum seat sizes without really going into any of the details. So they're sort of taking the accolades for that, but not.
That's a great point.
But
without doing anything.
Right, and there's no
That's a
real
great point.
follow-through because everybody has a 90-second attention span.
You know, you shouldn't be the most hated travel writer, actually, when you take positions like that.
So,
I agree.
By the way, the reason if we didn't say he's the most unpopular is because you're the one that proposed the drink limit. We should make
Yeah.
that clear.
Yes. Yeah,
So-
my friends no longer talk to me.
So Logan Airport apparently comes in very badly in this J.D. Power survey of airports. It's doing a little bit better. What's so terrible about Logan?
And what's your assessment? Where would you rank him?
I'm an impartial observer. I think of myself as a mirror reflecting back the world. However, there are. This is why are you laughing?
No,
at
go
that?
right ahead.
This is something that people have brought up to me. They say, well, LaGuardia is much worse than Logan, or Philadelphia is much worse than Logan. And I agree, but Logan is in a category of mega airports. You know, it's the number of passengers who come through, the number of planes who land there. So therefore, out of 20 airlines, 19, airports, Logan wound up at number 16, and I think it was the specific category was about average, was where they wound up.
Who wants to be about average?
So to answer your question, Jim, I don't think they deserve to be at 16. I feel like they're really making such strides. You know, Terminal E is fantastic.
Yeah, it
C
is, actually.
is really coming along, and they're going to be
Well, because
adding
of the
a
state
food.
cops are being reined in, so you don't have to go to jail
Yeah.
when you drop off your loved
Well,
ones.
the Boston Public Market is going to open in Terminal C, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's things happening there. They're not, resting on their laurels. They are investing hundreds of millions of dollars. Massport, I think, is doing a great job with it. I think the biggest problem for them is that they're so locked in their position. They can't expand out. They can't grow in a way that other airports can organically. They're stuck.
You know, in light of the fact that I'm negative about everything, let me be positive. Well, I have problems with Logan, too. If the trade-off is what you mentioned, if you have the choice between having a perfect airport an hour from the city or an imperfect but improving airport 10 minutes from the city, I'll take the 10 minutes. For anybody who travels, to get to any airport in virtually any major is endless. It is, or in to the city from it. The fact that Logan is so close is spectacular.
The number of flights I've missed because I've misjudged the amount of time because you get stuck in traffic or stuck on slow public transportation. It's true. I'd take Logan any day over that.
You know what I wish they'd do? I wish they'd clean the bathrooms better. That's one of the things I've noticed at Lyric.
I'm
The
with you,
bathrooms
too.
are really dirty.
So before we leave, last time Christopher was here, we asked you to email in stories of sex on airplanes.
Mhm.
We'd like you to email for his next visit whether you consider him the least popular. Send us to bpr@wgbh.org.
Yeah.
Should he be the most or least popular travel writer in
my
Boston?
boss is typing right now.
We didn't get to your great story about Portugal. Maybe next time, because
Let's
that's
do
a
it next
beautiful
time.
story about
Fabulous.
Portugal.
What's the name of that town?
Sintra.
What a beautiful story that was by
Thank
you.
you.
We'll talk about it next time.
Christopher
Thanks.
Muther
Good
is
to see
a
you,
widely
Christopher.
hated
Likewise.
travel writer and columnist for the Boston Globe and a BPR contributor. Thank you very much, Christopher, for being here.
See you
Coming
soon.
up,
Thank you.
should there be term limits on the Supreme Court? Shirley Young joins us
Yes.
for that and other headlines next on 89.7 WGBH Boston Public Radio.
I'm Marco Werman of The World, and this is 89.7 WGBH. WGBH HD1 Boston, online at WGBHnews.org. Boston's local NPR.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on WGBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by calling 888-897-9424 or give online at WGBHnews.org.
Okay, it is 12:58. That means you have exactly an hour left if you want to get the BPR Smug Mug. It's the return of the Smug Mug, and you're really going to chuckle out of it. Believe me, you will not be disappointed. For $12.50 a month, that is a sustainer offering. You can get the Smug Mug, which is a very smug picture of Jim, and you'll have a lot of fun showing it to your friends and making fun of Jim. It's black. It's 15 ounces. It is an IMAX-style mug. I don't know what that means, but
It's got
that's
great
what it is.
heft, by the way. It's got
great
weight.
heft, which
It
Jim really
does.
loves. It's gone at 2 o'clock this afternoon. That is it. There's going to be no more Smug Mugs, so this is your opportunity. The number is 888-897-9424. or WGBHnews.org. And you were right, Jim. If my picture looked like that, I'd be devastated. You have a good sense of humor about this because, believe me, you look terrible.
Thank you. And Allison in Boston says the following. This will make us both feel good. Jim and Marjorie are our family favorite. They've been helping us cope with this news era. It feels great to support you and to get that, the word was erased, something smug mug. Allison, thank you for your note. By the way, these contributions are our lifeline. I mean, without it, we can't do what we do. As Marjorie said repeatedly, the conventional wisdom is public radio is a government-supported entity. A very small percentage of our budget comes from the government. The vast majority of our funding comes from people like you. So it's not only important for our bottom line, it's also important for our psychological well-being.
It is.
And I don't mean the joke that we always tell one of us won't be here tomorrow if you don't give, even though it's probably true. It's a huge lift when you know that people care enough about the work that you and your colleagues do. They're willing to come to a chef's gala last night, which was great, or to make a contribution because times are tight for a lot of people. And again, $5 to become a member or $500 a month if you can. Whatever you can afford means a lot to us. 888-897-9424, WGBH.org.
I want to say thanks to Deborah in Sherborne, to Crystal in Southbridge, to Jill in Franklin, and to Vivian in Gloucester. It does give us, a boost because you like to think that people enjoy the show. We talked to people last night who said they enjoyed the show, and it was, as you said, making them feel less stressed, although I don't know why they feel less stressed listening to me because I don't think I can get any more stress than I am right now. I try to control it, Jim.
But doesn't that help our stress level, talking to people, even if they're stressed, when they give us a buzz or send us an email?
We're all having a nervous breakdown together.
It
makes me feel, well, I'm having a nervous breakdown.
Yes, you are. That is
I won't
correct.
speak for you. But anyway, if you want to get the Smug Mug, which will give you a laugh and which will ease, laughter is very good for easing nervous breakdowns and anxiety and all that kind of stuff. It's an hour left. It's all you have to take advantage of that. And I also say, too, we have these pledge breaks a couple of times a year. If we didn't have pledge breaks, we would have commercials every single day that would go on. Jim and I used to be on commercial radio. I mean, you could basically go out and get a massage during the commercials.
I did
so
a couple
long.
of times,
Yeah, they're
actually.
5 minutes, 7 minutes long. This is just a brief time. We don't have commercials the rest of the time. We don't have commercials because we are commercial-free radio supported by our listeners. So again, the Smug Mug is going to be gone at 2 o'clock. It's a really fun mug. I hope you can contribute $12.50 a month, and you will have one forever. Our number is 888-897-9424. WGBHnews.org is where you can give online. It's really quick and it's really easy.
John in Scituate, thank you for your contribution. Andy in Medford, thanks for supporting us. Barbara in Deerfield, New Hampshire. Julia, we met her last night from Winchester. We met briefly at the Food and Wine Festival last night. Thanks for hosting a fabulous event. And she goes on to write about how the fact that her father's favorite possession, father-in-law's, was his Smug Mug. And on his driving back from Florida, you know what happened, Marjorie?
What?
He broke it. So he's got till 2 o'clock to do it again. 888-897-9424, WGBH.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. Joining us to go over the latest headlines is Shirley Young. Shirley, as you know, is Boston Globe's interim editorial page editor and a GBH contributor. Shirley, it's very nice to see you. Hi.
Hi, good to see you. Great to see you, Shirley the Young. So Jim and I are hosting a debate on Thursday night, I guess. Or is it
No,
Wednesday
actually,
night?
I'm going to show up on Wednesday because it is
Okay,
Wednesday.
Wednesday night
At 7 o'clock.
Between the governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Charlie Baker, and his challenger, Jay Gonzalez. Oops, sorry, I had the wrong night. Good thing you told me. In any case.
Is it TV and radio both?
TV and radio and
both.
streamed,
Right.
all live at 7 o'clock.
But
Yep.
the reason
excited.
I mentioned that is because one of the travails of the Baker administration is this never-ending scandal with the state police, which seems to get worse and worse every day. You wrote an editorial about this, and Charlie Baker, what'd you say?
Well, we said at the speaking of debates, the very last debate with Jay Gonzalez, I think was on Tuesday. Baker went back to his old ways. He went back to distancing himself from the state police scandal. Again saying this has been going for a long time, as if before his administration began. And I believe he was on your show earlier this year when the scandal broke.
I think he was.
Saying, I own this, or if what happens on my watch, I'm responsible for it. But it seems he seems to be backtracking in the middle of the debate. So I'm very curious what he will say on Wednesday.
What day is the debate again?
Today's Wednesday.
Well, and this comes up the reason why we decided to write an editorial is because what was outrageous this week was what came out was that the state police 3 times tried to destroy records. I think payroll records, and there's a live criminal investigation going on, and this clearly happened on Baker's watch under him. You can't blame this on the state police of the previous administration, and so we were just outraged that the state police would attempt to do this.
Can I say something about 2 things about this? One, the most recent story, which we talked about on the air yesterday, I don't think there's a follow-up in the Globe today, but I hope there is, because the issue coming out of this requested destruction of records is they say 2 mid-level people, unnamed in the Globe story, were the ones that submitted it. I want to know if the colonel, who Jay Gonzalez once fired, who Charlie Baker has great trust in, Curry Gilpin, did she know about the request? Did she approve the request after she found out about it, whenever it was? Those are pretty important things to know. And the other thing I don't understand, and I'm going to sound naive, I find politicians who are willing to take responsibility for things that go wrong incredibly appealing. And maybe that doesn't work in politics, but if Charlie Baker stood up and said, you want to know something? I'm really feeling bad about this. And, maybe Gonzalez may have a point here. I got to do a little bit better on this. I am going to focus on this. I think we've done X and Y really well. Don't you find that really disarming in a politician? I think, assuming it's true. I mean, Baker may really believe it isn't his fault and he's doing everything he possibly could.
This is the problem. He said this on your show in April.
When he originally did take responsibility.
And
you know what April was? It was not election eve.
Right. And now on election eve, he has gone back and said, you know what? This happened before my administration started. He is still backpedaling, and so I'm curious to see what he said. Give him a chance to respond on Wednesday.
Well, there's a long history here of politicians in Massachusetts standing up for the state police. They want to get the state police endorsements. I mean, you guys have done brilliant stuff about, this outlier state police stations down in Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. They're not doing anything. It's ridiculous. They're down there all summer in these state finance beautiful places and arresting like 1 person a day or something like that. They like to see the state cops. So I think the politicians are not as tough on them as they should be.
Well, but in fairness to Baker on this, I think Gonzalez makes some really good points. Baker's contention is she has instigated, Gilpin has instigated a lot of these proceedings against cops when the bad cops, when they found out things. She's provided the data. But the question is, they gone far enough? I thought Gonzalez asked a good question. Didn't Gonzalez say in the John Keller debate the other night, you haven't fired anybody?
Exactly.
I think when you have such a troubled department, I don't like seeing people getting fired.
Well, he did
I think that's an issue.
He did change. There was a change of leadership.
Yeah.
But right.
Well, there's some resignations.
Right.
And some people, as Marjorie said, to try to get out ahead of the law.
But the
obviously,
question
in terms of their
who's
pensions.
investigating the state police?
Well, there are U.S. Attorney and Maura Healey.
Yep.
So that is happening. That's a good thing. But Jim, I think you put your finger on it. It's election eve. You're going to fire anybody now. You don't want to rock the boat now. I think that our issue with Charlie Baker is that he doesn't want to deal with this. He doesn't really want to know at this exact moment all the details. He wants to distance himself, and this is and as we point out in our editorial, this is not the first. He likes to distance himself from scandals, whether it's Department of Revenue, initially from the environmental police, his chief environmental police, former driver who was suspended and was unclear, and then the next day when pressed by reporters and asked the question, does it have to do with this ticket writing scandal, and he said that's one of the elements. He did acknowledge that finally.
So speaking of investigating themselves, there's an endless number of scandals coming out of the Catholic Church, and one of the things that drives people crazy, including myself, is that the Pope and the Cardinals, they talk to each other a lot, but they don't really have any outside investigators come in. Sean O'Malley has proposed that the former U.S. Attorney Donald Stern review these allegations of sexual misconduct at these 3 seminaries in Boston. Lots of people have criticized him, saying that O'Malley, saying that you can't have an independent investigation because the Archdiocese is paying former U.S. Attorney Don Stern. And one of them I respect hugely, the people from bishopaccountability.org.
And Mitchell Garabedian is another one.
But my question is, well, who's going to pay them? I mean, taxpayers?
I think it's a good start that he is brought in the former U.S. attorney, because before, as we reported in our editorial, the committee was made up of people, high-ranking Catholics,
Yes.
people who were too close
Terrible.
to the seminary and to the church, and so at least they are bringing. I mean, this is what you would do at a company. If there was a scandal at a company, you would bring in someone. A very former public, some high-ranking law enforcement official to come in. I mean, they could have brought in Scott Harshberger or Martha Coakley. So I'm glad they're, bringing someone of stature to come and investigate
But
it.
I hope this doesn't. Whether one believes that, and by the way, I think Stern is above reproach. I don't think either Garabedian or I don't want to speak for them. Barrett Doyle were criticizing Stern, but maybe the appearance of lack of independence. And again, we tried to reach them, but we didn't succeed before the show. We'll bring people up to speed next week. I have to say, I worry that this obscures what continues to be a huge issue, which is from my perspective, not a credible response from O'Malley himself as to these 2 letters that came to his office, which he allegedly did not see. I'd like him to sit down with an interviewer or two and answer some hard questions about the protocol and whether he really didn't see him. And the Pope, at least in my estimation, who finally fired another cardinal, I guess, in the last 24 hours, Worrell, because of this crisis. I think he has basically admitted to the fact that he knew about McCarrick and didn't do anything about it. I mean, what did he say? The document speaks for itself, the one that's written by his critic. I think until they come, I hate to even use this term, until they are more transparent, let's be kind, I think those are the questions that have to be continued to be asked, even if you love the fact that they've picked Don Stern. They really haven't.
I guess
answered
the critics want, someone like Maura Healey to get involved, right? They want truly someone outside.
I assume that's why I said to
Margie,
I'm guessing.
We were debating this before the show, and I remember that Tom
Margie
Riley was the last person that investigated the church way back when, in 2002,
After Spotlight,
and never indicted Cardinal Law. So,
but you can't criticize the process because of the outcome. I mean, the fact that he did it because of the outcome, you can criticize him. But I am assuming what Shirley does, even though we don't know this, that Barrett Doyle and Garabedian, who are pretty incredible people, I assume their position is what Shirley says. They would like the Attorney General herself
I think
to
that's what
investigate
they
in
were
some
quoting in the
fashion.
news stories saying, I think.
So, in any case, but that is the latest.
But I guess I'm saying, the Attorney General's office would only get involved if she thought there were probably criminal, if there were more evidence, or and maybe this is more evidence of sexual misconduct, or more. I guess maybe this is the first step. I mean, Stern does his investigation, and then maybe the Attorney General would then look at what would happen there.
Well,
the
or maybe
that.
the first step is to find out if the facts suggest that a crime was committed, like at this seminary that is it St. John's?
St. John's, and then they would refer to the AGs. But I think that's why she's not getting involved right away. But she does want she does feel strongly, and she said this in our editorial, that there needs to be an independent investigation.
I don't mean to belabor this, but let me just say again, because I'm so skeptical, and this is, I would argue, one of the greatest crime rings in the history of the world. This sexual assault, sexual violence perpetrated against young boys and girls, by the way, both by leaders and priests and leaders in the Catholic Church. Let's just remember when O'Malley is head of this commission appointed by the 2 survivors. There were only 2 survivors.
They left.
Both withdrew from the commission because they said it was such a joke that they weren't even make the most reasonable
the Catholic Church
moves.
is not embracing zero tolerance. They're not opening up their records. They're not, the grand jury has to go get them, and they are not they're fighting the statute of limitations. So they're not being transparent about this, and it's really too bad, because you know what's going to happen? This is going to keep trickling out and trickling out. There'll be another Pennsylvania, and it's going to keep going on and on.
And there are other AGs looking into.
Yes,
starting with Pennsylvania.
Just open up the books and let the pieces fall where they may.
So Shirley, I loved, and let me underline, loved your editorial in the Supreme Court, where not only did you speak to term